Hey, what's up guys? My name is Alexander Floorzone. Today we have something very fresh from Rocket. This is their all new and improved Kone Pro Air. They just released the Kone Pro Air and Kone Pro mouses for $130 US and $80 US respectively. These are the I guess they're supposed to be sort of the final version of Rocket's original Kone mouse, which was released way back like 15 years ago. It was their first gaming mouse ever, and I guess this is sort of the final form of it. Alright guys, so the way I like to start out these reviews is by doing a little unboxing. The packaging is actually pretty dang lame, but I mean, it's just for a unit of this price point. I would have expected something a little more. But I guess I also wouldn't want to be paying an extra $10 just to have an overkill box. Inside we just have the instruction manual here, and then we have the mouse with the cord and the little USB receiver dongle. One thing I was surprised not to see in the box was some feet for the mouse, some replacement feet, because in my Burst Pro unboxing there were some replacement feet that came with the mouse, but I did look that up later, and it turns out that Rocket does include replacement feet. I just didn't get any in my box for some reason. A couple sticky pads on the bottom we have on the front and back, and in the middle under the sensor, which is kind of extra. One of the first things that I noticed in my first impressions is the scroll wheel. Very nice. Also, the side buttons had a nice tactile click, and I did some basic glide testing. The Kone Pro Air is a little bit heavier than the Burst Pro, but honestly, to me, it felt like it glided even smoother, even with the cord plugged in. So before we get into the specs, I'd like to take a little look at the body here. First of all, on the bottom, we have a little slot for our USB receiver dongle, and then we have a switch where we can switch between Bluetooth connection and a 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection, so you can actually switch between either of those. And then we have a button here to cycle through profiles. Then on the front we have our nice deep set USB-C charge port, and on the top we have our standard right-left click along with our scroll wheel and a couple buttons on the left side. I gotta say, my favorite part about the physical features when it comes to the Kone Pro Air is definitely the scroll wheel. That, I think, is an absolute win. It's really refreshing to have a scroll wheel that isn't so rubbery and, full of LEDs. The scroll wheel on the Kone Pro Air and Kone Pro is actually milled out of solid aluminum, and it's just got a simple coat of paint on it. So it's just got a really nice feel. It feels super premium. It's kind of a stealth look, and it's not polluted by all that rubber and RGB. The scrolling and clicking on it is also very satisfying. And the switches on the rest of the buttons are also quite nice as well. Particularly these side buttons are pretty good when compared to something like the Burst Pro, which was the last mouse that I reviewed. I found the side buttons were lacking just a little bit. As for buttons and input, there's one thing that I wish the Kone Pro Air did have, and that is a DPI cycle button right here by the scroll wheel, or just some sort of reprogrammable button there. I don't know if I'm a fan of having like 15 different buttons on your mouse, but having just one more extra on top, I think can be really handy, especially considering that it's reprogrammable. Now the body of the mouse, in terms of size and shape, first of all, it's what I would consider to be quite large. On Rocket's website, they are very proud of their design and shape. They say that it's good for every grip. For a full palm, which I would totally agree with. I mean, a mouse of this size, it's hard for it to not fit for that kind of grip, and it's very comfortable too. And a claw, that's absolutely doable, and a fingertip. Now the fingertip, I disagree with. I think it's just a little too big of a mouse to be doing a fingertip grip. It's a little bit, I don't know, it just feels like it's too much to be dragging around without a solid hold. But as long as you're not a die-hard fingertip kind of user, then I'm sure you'll love the shape of this mouse. It's very well designed. Now, let's talk some specifications. 19,000 DPI. Wow. Titan optical switches with 100 million clicks. Overkill. 2.4 gigahertz wireless plus Bluetooth. Love it. 1.8 meter super flexible cable. Awesome. 75 grams, exceptionally light. Onboard memory profiles. Very handy. And a couple little RGB lights in the left and right click on the end here. Nice bonus. So all of that is a lot. Let's go over just what each of those things really means. First of all, we have 19K DPI. The DPI that I use just for moving around on the desktop on a daily is like 1800 or 2000. And with 19K set to maximum, you just move about like 1/8 of an inch, I think, and it crosses your whole desktop. If you go fast, your frame rate, chances are it won't be able to keep up with the mouse travel, and you'll just see it blink in the middle of the screen somewhere before it reaches the other side. So it's really over the top, but some people will definitely use that to its fullness. The Titan optical switches, those are the switches for the right and left click here. I don't know about the rest of the buttons, but it's an optical switch, which basically means that it intersects a tiny little light when you press down the switch. And that light, when it gets intersected, it sends a signal at the speed of light, apparently. And basically this is supposed to be a much faster response time than just clicking with conventional mechanical switches. Now that 2.4 gigahertz wireless and Bluetooth, that's something that I really appreciate. I love compatibility. I think it's awesome. I love it when, you have different options of what to do. We have our little wireless receiver here, and basically you can plug this into any computer, doesn't matter if it supports Bluetooth or not, and you connect to it that way. And then there's also Bluetooth. So if you don't want to take up an extra USB slot and your computer supports Bluetooth, usually a laptop. Personally, I'm a laptop user, so this is great. You don't have to use the dongle. You don't have to fill up a USB slot, and you can just go right Bluetooth, which is awesome. There's just a little switch on the bottom here, as I pointed out earlier, which you switch back and forth to switch between how you are connecting, which is really cool. Now the 1.8 meter flexible cable, I love it. One second. I put it down here because it's super ugly to put on the table. But anyway, it's super light, super flexible. It's not like the lightest and most flexible, but it's definitely way beyond a conventional cable. I love this because Rocket could have easily skimped out on this since it's a wireless mouse and just put in, a decent cable enough for charging, because that's what it's intended for the most part. But with this one, you can pop it in there and it feels just like using a non-wireless gaming mouse of this caliber. So if you have to charge up, it's only going to be a very minor decrease in comfortability. It's also got a nice deep socket for the USB-C cord, and so it won't be bumped and moved around, which will totally help with loose charge port. That won't happen for sure, which is great. I love it. We also have a little picture on the other end of our USB cord here, so you can see what you're looking at when you're fiddling around in the back of your PC with all those mess of rat's nest wires. Now the weight, 75 grams. Very impressive. The non-air Kone Pro is, I think, like 67 grams or something. It's their lightest gaming mouse ever, and this one doesn't really fall that far behind when comparing to other mice, especially other wireless gaming mice. This is really low. We've seen a lot of these wireless gaming mice that are up in the hundreds. So this is a really great option when it comes to weight if you're extremely competitive or you just like the feel of a very, very easy acceleration. Now last but not least, the onboard memory and the RGB sort of tie in together, because the RGB and all of your settings on your mouse are set in the Rocket Swarm program. You hop onto the computer, you plug it in, and you can change the colors of the LEDs here, as well as your DPI presets, your button programming for these two on the side, and all of your buttons, even the ones on the bottom, you can reprogram. So that's pretty cool, and it all gets saved onto your onboard memory. So you unplug this, plug it into another computer somewhere else, all saved there. It's not saved on a profile to your PC, it's saved to your mouse. Taking a close look at the RGB though, it is super stealth. It's a lot more stealth than something like the Burst Pro with the big shine through on the handle, which is a pretty cool look, especially with the stealth looking scroll wheel. Now, I guess the big question is this mouse actually a good product? Is it a good purchase? Because I think anybody can make a great mouse. First of all, this is a great mouse. It's awesome, amazing. But anybody can make a great mouse if they spend enough money. But is it really the best mouse if it costs twice as much as a very close competitor? In my opinion, that just kind of ruins it. But the Kone Pro here, if anything, it's the same. It is definitely not more expensive. It's definitely not a bad deal. What I can tell you is that Razer's competing mouse isn't exactly the same. It's got a few things that are a little bit more premium about it, but it also has some drawbacks. Like it's, I think it's 12 grams heavier, and also the click lifespan is 70 million instead of 100 million clicks. But I mean, who cares about that, right? 100 million clicks is, I've said in my videos before, is 1 click every second, 8 hours a day for 10 years. It's just unbelievably long. But anyway, that's the Death Adder V2 from Razer. If you want to check that out, you might want to, because it's a very similar value. However, honestly, personally, I think the Death Adder V2 just looks horrible and uncomfortable. Just the shape of it's like, what? Also, if you're into the sort of stealth setup and not looking too gamery and like over the top, this is definitely more towards that side of things. It's a little more stealth and professional looking. You might also be wondering about other companies that make competing products, but I gotta tell you, I looked around and I wasn't really able to find any. I looked at Corsair, HyperX, Logitech. None of them had anything that really came close. I mean, this is a very top-of-the-line mouse, so it's no big surprise. I guess my verdict is that if you're a hardcore gamer who really wants a wireless mouse at the lightest weight with lots of features, this is a great option. This is one of your only options, really, but it's done very well. The shape is awesome. There's no real big drawback to it. The only real issue I can see is if you're looking at this versus the Death Adder V2 Pro from Razer. That's the only real competitor I can see, so I think you should definitely check out that other one. But not all of us can be really hardcore into gaming and go for all the top-end peripherals, right? So I do recommend checking out the non-air model of the Kone Pro. Also, when you get into that price range, you're seeing a lot more different competitors. So if you're going to drop down there, I do recommend that maybe you drop even a tiny bit further and take a look at the Burst Pro here. It is a wired mouse, and it is a great, really great value if you're on a little bit of a budget, but you still want to go premium. So that wraps up the video, guys. I hope that it helped you out in deciding what mouse to get. I do recommend that you check out my video on the Burst Pro over here, as it is a really great value at a much lower price. But anyway, please leave a comment as to what you think about these mice, and subscribe to see more videos like this, as well as project videos and all that fun stuff. That's all for today, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.